Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, both here in the audience and at home on Zoom. Welcome to the Lakewood City Council study session agenda for this Monday, November 13, 2023. So we have 3 items for discussion tonight. The first is the review of the 2023-2024 mid-biennial budget. And for this, we have our Deputy City Manager, Todd Kraus, to give us the overview.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm going to give an overview, but I also want to let you know that the packet has been posted to the website and there's a lot of detailed information. First off, if you're following along, it's page 3 of the council packet. And the purpose of this, and I'm giving a little bit more detail because I know that we do have a new council member. So the purpose of this budget adjustment is we had some year-end delays, and so I'm adjusting a couple of the beginning balances for 2023, not the general fund. There are adjustments to incorporate items that the city council previously approved. I tried to capture that in the details. I know I didn't get everything in terms of laying out that the city council had already approved it, and appropriating projects that are funded by grants or contributions. There is still some continuation of capital projects, and you'll see that there are new programs as well. So the next steps is we have the public hearing scheduled for next Monday and then adoption for December 4th. There is one major item that is not incorporated in this budget adjustment, and that is the AFSCME contract. It expires on this year, at the end of this year, and we don't have anything budgeted for 2024 in terms of any of their negotiations or potential negotiation items. On page 4, you'll see the changes in beginning fund balance and ending fund balance. Page 5, you'll see the general fund, ending fund balance reserves. So the city council adopted some policies back in 2014 to have about 12% in ending fund balance reserves for the general fund. That includes the contingency reserves of 2%, general fund, ending fund balance reserves, and strategic reserves of 5% each. And then additionally, during the 21 and 22 biennial budget, City Council authorized a $2 million reserve for economic development opportunities. So taking into consideration of this budget adjustment, the ending fund balance for 2023 equates to about $11.5 million. And that is reduced down to $7.6 million in 2024 if the city council were to adopt the budget as proposed.
Just a quick question on that. I know you'll go through most of it, but the difference between the 23 and 24 numbers, the 3.8, are those going to be the adjustments, some of which are one time for this particular cycle that
Yes,
we're looking at?
that is correct.
Okay.
So for the proposed budget adjustments, I did take a look at some of the major revenues and made some adjustments there, partially to balance the request. So for the sales tax, there is some adjustments there, about $368,000 in 2023, and 2024 is a $377,000 increase. Interest earnings, we've seen a major change in interest earnings. You know, at the beginning of the year in 2022, we were looking at about 1%. We're currently at about 5.5%. And that amount is reduced in 2024 because we have no idea what's going to happen then. Plus, we'll have a decrease in ending fund balance. Gambling tax, we did have an establishment that was not operational. And so we're missing out on some of the sales or the gambling tax revenues as they are remodeling. And then camera enforcement, consistent with what we've seen in the previous years, I'm increasing the estimates by $100,000 each year. I'll go through and I will actually switch over to page 22 of your packet. On page 22 of your packet is more of a summary. If you want a lot of additional details, they are on pages 4 through 2021. On page 2022, you'll see where I've designated what type of adjustment they are, if they're for revenues or if they're revenue neutral or if they're new programs, and if it's one-time funded or ongoing. So Office of Public Defense grant is a revenue neutral. So we've been continuing to receive the grants of $68,000. What I'll do is I'll just go through the new items. I think is probably better. Otherwise, I could spend a lot of time. Audit costs have increased. And the impact to the city's general fund is $6,000 per year. We're asking for some GASB accounting software. The world of accounting has changed. There's like several different pronouncements, and this will assist us quite substantially. This is one of the biggest changes in accounting with this new GASB. About 25 years ago, the current financial system that we have, they've been talking about doing away with it and requiring us to move to a different software. 10 years ago, when I got here, the same story. And I've talked to them. I said, hey, is this really going to happen? It's been like, 20 years. And we finally got the notice. I think it was earlier this year that end of life is reaching, and it'll take about 2 years to convert the system. So we're requesting funding in 2024. So the funds are available when we start that process in early 2025. And you'll see also that there is an increase in the M&O. For subscription as a service, typically because they're hosted on the, we're not hosting it, they're hosting it, there's an increase in cost and it about doubles. Adding some small amounts for the Puget Sound Regional Council dues. And then a big one here, actually the next two are really big. It is suspending the fleet and equipment reserves collection is about $833,000. That will help us pay for the WCIA increase, totaling about $775,000, of which $746,000 impacts the general fund.
Can you go back up just a couple to the Financial Enterprise Resource Planning ERP system? That's a big one at 450. Is that what you were talking about, the upgrades? I thought that was the $18,000 one. No, we're talking about the big one.
And actually the $450,000 may be actually even higher. There are other considerations. So there may be other components that we'll want to add that we don't have. The good news is it's not as much as it could be because we moved away, like the permitting system is now part of King County. Business licensing is primarily with the state. So that saved us. I've removed some other things that we're currently not utilizing. So
what is this going to do for you? Is it just a matter of keeping up with the time, so to speak, or will it streamline operations to a significant degree, make the budget more transparent?
It's basically, we have no choice. Basically, how we make payroll, accounts payable, we will not have a system that will be supported.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So they had about, I think it was like 234 clients. And so many people are in the same situation as we are. If we get on early in 2025, that's an off budget year. A lot of the resources will need to be dedicated to this.
Wow. Mr. Branstetter?
Yeah, I mean.
So on that particular system, that $450,000 one-time cost, but you mentioned that the getting it and then putting it into operation is 2 years or more. So is the 450,000 something that we're allocating in the 2024 budget, but that we're likely, depending how the contract is structured, going to spend over 24, 25 and into 26 so that there'll be carry forward adjustments. We're not looking at in 2025 another 400,000.
Really what the 450,000 gets us is securing funding for 2024 so that we can start a contract and get on their schedule. So right now we can schedule for 2025, early 2025, right after the budget is adopted. Without having this funds available, we would go through the budget process or the carry forward, which would be very late in the game for us to be done with implementation. So basically this replaces the entire financial system.
But we would fund a multi-year contract with some provider.
Yes.
So that that 450 is actually, it's going to take a while to spend it
Yes,
down to next to nothing.
yeah,
But,
but it's an absolute necessary. We cannot run.
but you need to have it allocated in 2024 to just be able to do the contract and,
25.
okay, thanks.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, you know, this is about as realistic as I could get with the information that I do know. But once we start getting into it, I'm hoping that we don't come back to the city council for any additional funds. But,
Yeah.
you know, we could have looked at about, you know, $700,000 if we had all of those other systems in place.
Right.
If I down to that chart to the suspending the fleet and replacement reserve charges. And so if I look at the chart, it's 833,000 something that we're not going to move around internally. In other words, the different departments who are having to pay that every year are not going to pay it this year. So this particular fund is going to, I guess I'm wondering why that's a negative number and why there's just, or are we actually, do we actually have fleet equipment and reserve expenses in 2024 of 833,000?
So as part of the 2023 and 2024 budget, there is budgeted reserves collections from all of the departments within the general fund, the street and maintenance and operations fund, as well as the swim fund. Really what this does, reducing that budget, is to accommodate the WCIA increase. This is really taking a proactive look at balancing the budget. The other option is to start immediately and identifying what cuts need to be made in 2024 in order to be able to make the payment for WCIA.
Okay, so is the WCIA bill that we're paying by not paying this bill, is that also one that is allocated across all the departments
Yes.
so that they're doing that? And so why is why are there no numbers in the 2023 column? Didn't the departments make contributions in 2023 into that?
Yes, in
Fine.
2023, departments are contributing to the fleet and equipment reserves. They are also paying for the WCIA assessment. We have that already taken care of in 2023. We received notice of the increase in the WCIA assessments. I think it was like in August, September timeframe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So but on the chart on page 22, that the fact that there's no numbers in 2023 is just that the 2023 number didn't change from the budget, that there were contributions that were made, there was money being able to go and do that.
Yes.
So earlier in the memorandum, there was a thing about ending fund balances. And I guess that I'm we're going to continue to have expenses that we would want to go to this fund for. I mean, for instance, one of the adjustments is that we're going to buy 4 new police vehicles. This would be the money that would normally be used for that. And I'm assuming that it's still going to be, because there's money in that account. So what's the impact on the ending fund balance at the end of 2024 of the amount of money we have in the equipment, fleet and equipment replacement reserves?
The ending fund balance would be is estimated at about $4.7 million. The vehicle and equipment that are scheduled to be replaced in 2024, which the city council already approved, is still moving forward. What we can do and we will do as part of the carry forward budget adjustment, we will take a look at where general fund lands, and that is an area that we could restore. And so if we have good ending fund balance, then we could make up for this at this time, or when we hit the carry forward budget adjustment next year.
So we already had programmed expenditures from this.
Yes.
Internal fund.
Yeah.
That we've already approved in the 23-24 budget, and we're still this is not gonna make it so that those can't happen.
Correct.
They will still be there. And then the changes that we're looking at and in this document, where in addition to the already programmed ones, there's some additional vehicles that have to be replaced because they were destroyed in accidents or something. I think there were 4 police vehicles.
Yes.
But there's still plenty of money to do that.
Yes, I think the 4 vehicles that you're referring to,
Okay.
2 of them is from insurance proceeds and it's $80,000. I think I put $800,000 in one of the vehicles, but it's actually $80,000, all of which will be recovered by insurance proceeds. The other $17,931 is also being funded by insurance proceeds. The other $40,000 is being funded by accumulated replacement reserves. So no impact to those.
Okay, and in the council adopted financial policies, in our discussions about financial policies, we said having such a fund like this that all the departments contribute to not have to have every time you needed something new would be a crisis to try to figure out how to do it. Is going on, but we don't have anything that's like a percentage or a set amount that we want that fund to maintain a fund balance.
Not in these funds. Our policies state that we will collect replacement reserves on those assets that collect replacement reserves. This here would be a temporary suspension of those policies, and we will reevaluate as part of the 2024 carry forward based on 2023's ending fund balance. If there is sufficient ending fund balance, we would make a recommendation to restore those reserve collections.
Okay, so you know, assuming that the WCIA costs, they're going up this year, but assuming that they're not going to go down in future years, okay, because of the nature of what the WCIA does for us. That is this the beginning of a process of reducing the amount that departments will be contributing to this fund, or are we going to ask them to, in the 25-26 budget, would you envision them having to fund both WCIA and this fund adequately?
Yeah, that is something that so right now we're starting the 2025-2026 budget process. We've had some internal discussions within our executive leadership team to start thinking about it. We have not made a determination where those changes would occur, but we are starting the process, taking a look at what it is that we do that is essential or important or discretionary as a start, and really just taking a look from priorities, taking a look at the city council strategic plan, the goals and objectives, and understanding that you are going to be develop something a bit more streamlined in terms of the strategic plan. But there's a lot of different options on, you know, what we could reduce if needed. And you're absolutely correct. I don't think there will be changes in WCIA assessments anytime soon, just because of the environment that we're in.
But I guess that the strategy for how we deal with that is something that the council would take up with in the 25-26 budget.
Yes.
Adoption process.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me just ask one more question off of page 22, if I may, and that is on the gambling tax revenue. The adjustment is that we're reducing the estimate of revenue for 2023 downward. What assumptions made us think that 2024 will be different than 2023 so that we're not reducing. Because generally those revenue projections were like the same each year or a few cents different. So, but the 150 that we're not going to get this year, what makes us think that we're going to get it next year?
We have one establishment that was temporarily closed for remodeling, so they were not open to business.
Okay, but we expect them to be open an entire year in 2024 or more months in 2024 than they were in 2023?
I don't believe it's going to be closed through 2024. I think it was just more of a temporary closure as they were remodeling.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'll skip over to page 2023. On top of page 2023, we do have some additional software requests, and they are related to short-term rentals and rental housing safety program. These here have a much lower cost. They are basically being developed by the less cost and input from the city is required. So it's just subscription-based as well. There's a small increase of $15,000 for the National Community Survey in 2023. There's also so in the past couple of years, we have that GARE membership for diversity, equity, inclusion. So this is a membership, ongoing membership in 23 and 2024. Communications, you've seen the work that communications has done. This will further elevate them in terms of professional development. We also are capturing a public records settlement of $45,000. Small increase in clean air assessment. And then you'll see in police, as I was reviewing the police budget and actuals, there were a lot of things that were sort of out of whack. One of them totaling about $284,000 was settlements that the city council approved for 2 employees. That's a one-time expense. We had retiree cash out on termination. We've had a lot of police retirements, and typically those would be absorbed within the budget, but because the number is so high, I've captured it here. Police is being very proactive in their recruitment and requested $25,000 for recruitment supplies. Firearms training ammunition and SRT ammunition. The price of ammunition increased. There were some delays in getting the ammunition. So this request is to help them fund that for 2023. We also have South Sound assessment increase of $49,000 in 2024. There was a smaller increase in the City of Tacoma radio fees. We're capturing the Nisqually jail services. So there was some rate increases and they billed us all at once. And so really this is just a one-time increase going back to, I believe it was July 2022 through December. That totaled about $174,000. Implementing the flock safety Falcon cameras, $125,000 one time and $108,000 on an ongoing basis. And then the Axon license plate readers of $75,000 in each year. We also have additional police requests for Axon body camera interview room. So the city council approved the Axon cameras, but it didn't capture any of the wiring and networking that our IT folks had to do. So that equates to about $30,000. Police also has a request for software for a field training officer, as well as an EDR toolkit software. And the details of each of these are in the report itself. So then what I tried to do is take a look at freeing up general fund dollars. And one of those items was reducing the transfer to transportation projects and replacing it with other restricted funds such as transportation benefit district or real estate excise tax. And page 25, really in the street fund, it's really just to cover the increases in the WCIA assessment and the impact of not collecting the replacement reserve since general fund subsidizes that fund. The city council also approved a transportation benefit district funded bond project bonds of $11.6 million based on where we are at capital spending. We did not have to issue the bonds in 2023, delayed that to 2024. And it was, have it scheduled for first quarter of 2024, but depending on the needs, it could be later in that year. My goal is to do it in 2024. The rest of these programs are funded by special revenue funds or restricted funds and have no impact to the general fund. So I'll skip those over unless there are any questions.
You have a question? Okay. Let's move along on this one. So I had a question a little bit, sorry about this, on the GASB 87 accounting for leases with regard to the McGavick Center. What is that?
So this has to do, it's very, very technical.
Yeah.
And it's really because of this new accounting requirement that the Governmental Accounting Standards Board put out. We had to show the value of the lease and what's outstanding as it relates to the McGavick Center. So if you put all of the details of the McGavick Center and how we're funding it,
Okay,
it technically is a lease. It's a wash. It's revenues and expenditures.
Okay.
It's kind of complicated and I'm not sure what value it provides, but it's a requirement.
all right, no problem. Caught my eye, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
Great, thanks. Just process question. So on page 22, for instance, we've got a number of items at the bottom that both have a revenue and an expense associated with them. Does that imply that we received funding and then it got pushed out to another account?
This actually is when it's revenue neutral, like for example, the bottom ones that you see, the four, these are grants. So we'll budget for an expenditure, but we'll have an offsetting revenue to wash it. So
Okay.
basically no impact to the general fund.
So the bottom item on the page there, the tree mitigation, what was the expense for us to receive funds for trees that were taken out?
Okay, so this is part of the Panettone tree mitigation. They paid us $417,600 in accordance with some agreements. And we are budgeting that $417,000, which is sitting in a liability, will expense it at some point, and the offsetting revenue is the money that we've already collected. So there's no financial impact to the general fund. We're just going to spend what we've already received. And the actual expenditures is still to be determined. So for example, whatever program.
But we expect those expenditures to occur in 2023.
We budgeted in 2023. If it doesn't get spent, we'll roll it over into
As part of the carry
2024.
forward.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So we try to capture as much as we can in the current year and then treat it as a carry forward. And the benefit, especially for me, is I won't forget it.
Right.
So
Cool. Thank you.
and that's all I have. That's it.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how the general fund has grown in the 16 years I've been doing this, whatever. It's
We're in a much better position to even have this conversation.
absolutely. Absolutely. It is interesting on the WCIA premium. You know, one wonders at some point in time with the various verdicts and jury verdicts and settlements that are happening, not just with Lakewood, obviously, but around the state, that whether cities like Lakewood will be able to be insured at a reasonable rate down the road. It's challenging. Yeah, it's a lot of money.
The laws have changed and the verdicts have changed substantially. What we've seen before as it just happened this way. Well, the jury is very sympathetic to
Right.
victims.
Mr. Anderson and I missed the wave at some point in our careers for some reason, but
Yeah, it's just a comment on that. I don't think it's gonna change soon. I don't know what they call themselves this week, but the plaintiffs' trial attorneys have a good hold on the legislature, and every session they go down and pass a new liability law that expands liability where other states are contracting it. And HS is probably the largest tort judgment debtor of any in the country, and they could limit that liability by legislation. Instead, they just keep funding it and don't hold anybody accountable. So cities are going to get swept up in it, and I have nothing positive on the horizon that I can see. It's just, we're going to have to devote a greater amount of our budget to sometimes frivolous things. It's not that people don't get hurt. It's not that people aren't entitled to a judgment, but it shouldn't be winning the lottery. Yeah, which is kind of what it is now, is winning a lottery.
Yeah, and in my memo, I did provide some examples of some of the awards
Right.
that went out. And
Yeah, they're huge, yeah. Well, the cottage industry of Public Records Act litigation has been impactful as well, and we're seeing 45,000 of that in our own books.
One last question, and it's on the summary page on page 4. So if I read this correctly, we started 2023 with a budget of about 64 million and we ended with about 29.
I'm sorry, what page are we
On
on?
page 4.
Page
the
4.
Overall summary.
Oh, page 4, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes,
So we started with about 64 million and ended with about 29, right?
yes, that's correct.
And next year we're anticipating starting with 30 and ending with about 23. Should we be concerned that the burn rate we had in 2023 could be similar in 24 and that we need to really tighten our belts?
You know, a large portion of that has to do with capital projects. So capital projects, you know, are large numbers, and typically the projects don't get done in the year that they're budgeted because we go through the design right away and construction. So whatever is not spent is going to carry over. So majority of the time, almost always, actually it's always, the adopted budget is all new money. Carry forward budget will include everything, old and new money. So it's not a concern in that respect. Where we spend a lot of time here talking about is the WCIA assessment. That is going to be one of our biggest expenditures. In the prior year, the increase was about $534,000. This year it's $775,000, and we're not seeing anything.
Yeah, the numbers you're talking about typically, as Ms. Kraus indicates, account for those big grant monies that we get on the capital side for road projects. And so you see that big chunk, and then as it gets spent down, the projects are done, and it reduces down what you've got left.
So based on that, we would see likely a carry forward that would change this revised ending budget of 30 million upwards for things that we're rolling forward into 24. Is that right?
At the end of the year, we'll have a higher ending fund balance, and then when we get into the carry forward, you'll see that number go down because then we'll be appropriating or budgeting for those unspent projects.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you'll see the same, similar.
All right, I'll stay tuned.
Yep.
Yeah.
And if it gets bad, we can always do bake sales. So that works. Yep. Right, exactly. Anything else on that, Ms. Kraus?
That's all I have.
Any other questions for Ms. Kraus before we turn to the next item? Significant work on the budget. Thank you. So on the budget issue, let's take a look at the lodging tax funding recommendations for 2024.
Okay, so first of all, I just want to thank Dana Capella, who is our Assistant Finance Director, who's sitting in the audience observing. This is sort of our final transition where she'll be back next year to present the anything related to lodging tax. So as you saw in the budget adjustment, there is an adjustment to allocate the 2024 grants. But I want to say that it is pending City Council's approval of the recommendations. So some of this information you've already seen in July, the uses of the lodging tax, the committee members, the amount that is available for the 2024 allocation. 2024 allocation is based on where we anticipate 2023 will be. So starting on page 52, The amount that is estimated to be available for the 2024 grants is about $3.1 million. We take the McGavick Center right off the top because that is something that the city has committed to. So on page 53, you'll see we have a lot of the same people who are applying. We also have some new ones, such as the Lakes Cross Country Booster Club is new. And we had grave concerns. They're fairly new. I think they also applied last year and received some funding. And then the Fiesta de Familia is also a new one. So the total request was $1,017,950, and the recommendation is $1,126,800 with 7,000 additional funds above and beyond what the Lakewood Playhouse had requested. So if the city council, the next step for this is for the city council to consider it at the November 20th. If the city council chooses to approve all of these, they will be picked up as part of the budget adjustment. The options that the city council may take on the November 20th is the city council may accept or reject any of the lodging tax funding recommendations. The city council is not required to fund the entire list. However, the city council cannot make modifications to each of those or any of those recommendations. The other option is the city council could return the recommendations to the lodging tax for further consideration, but we would need to follow the same process. So 45 days notification before any financial action is taken. So that concludes my presentation.
Very good. Any questions? The city, go ahead, Mr. Branstad. The city increased the ask somewhat. Well, not increase, but measurable increases to accommodate a lot of the events that we put on that are free to the citizens and residents who enjoy those events. So that's a big chunk there. You'll see in the bottom third of the chart, Mr. Branstad.
One of the topics not directly related to this memorandum and approving these recommendations, but that council's had some discussions and we've received some input, okay, regarding short-term rentals in the city. And one of the things that we're going to budget for is some software to try to get a handle on those and try to figure them out to do that. But how do short-term rentals, once we actually get a handle on that business sector, contribute, or do they, to the lodging tax dollars?
If they meet, so right now, my understanding there's potentially over 130 short-term rentals, potentially. So depending on if they meet the criteria to pay the lodging tax, then that revenue would fall into the lodging tax and it would be allocated the same as any other type of hotel or any Airbnb.
Okay, if we pursue that to where short-term rentals contributed to the lodging tax, and the lodging tax is divided into three, it's actually a total of three separate taxes, I guess. Is there going to be, would that require some council action regarding those particular taxes, other than just that we said that's what the percentage is, in order to make it apply to short-term rentals?
I don't believe there is any additional action that the city council would take. It would be based on the state law for what constitutes and what meets the criteria to pay the lodging tax. And sorry, I don't have that with me. That was something that I did way back 10 years ago when I started the city, and I did not come prepared to give you the specifics. It's like the certain number of days.
Yeah. Well, I think that the element of the potentially increasing the number of short-term rentals in the business, and of trying to figure out how many we really have and what's going on, is more a discussion that has arisen out of the plan and work of the planning commission this year, and they're making them some recommendations to us about do that. So I think it's something that as we get into 25 and 26, we're going to want to know what has happened, what does that playing field look like, and is there something that we need to do to try to put it together, or that we need to get our partnership with the state regarding them processing business licenses to do for us. Okay, so, but and on the other hand, the money that we're going to spend in 2024 is based on the money that we're going to collect in 2023. So, you know, it doesn't apply to what your memorandum is addressing. I just think that it's a nuance of the conversation that we need to be having over the shorter term. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, the interesting piece is you look at the amount that's reserved and set aside, it's on the capital side. Because we've yet to completely identify as a council the capital project to invest in. It might be the H barn, might come from that, it might be the urban park, it might be something else, but the money keeps adding up, which is a good thing.
Yeah, you know, we did have a conversation as part of the H barn
Mhm.
and that the city would be applying in 2024 for a
For a
lodging
piece of it,
tax.
right?
Yes, with a bond issuance in early 2025 in order to fund the other, I think it's 3.5 million for construction.
To kind of some seed planting money using lodging tax to get the process, the bond started.
To support the bond issue.
Right.
So the McGavick Center
Will
debt
be
service
done.
will be done. Yeah.
Mhm. Got it. Okay, very good. Well, next, because you brought Candy, we're keeping you on the hot seat for the third one. The review of the 2024 fee schedule amendments. So I guess we have our deputy city manager, Ms. Kraus, as well as Parks and Recreation Director, Mary Dodsworth.
Yes, and actually, our Parks Director, Mary Dodsworth, is actually going to be presenting the information. This is really part of the budget process, and it's something that we started about 10 years ago. So really, the only change in the fee schedule is related to parks. And I don't know if you want to hear a presentation or go directly to.
I think we got the memo, so maybe Ms. Dodsworth, you can kind of take us through how you came up with the
Sure.
recommended numbers. And this principally is for the new ball fields, right?
Well, every year we take a look at operations, we look at the fee schedule, and we have made adjustments or additions based on what's happening, current trends, new opportunities. So what you're seeing tonight in this packet is either clarity because we wanted to make it just easier for people looking at the fee schedule to understand what the fees are or the category areas. We've made some updates based on current management, operation practices, and then, of course, the new fees based on some new opportunities that have been brought to the city of Lakewood. We've also provided some basic information to summarize as well as some comparable information. So you can just see from a market rate perspective how it fits within the region area. Typically, we kind of look from Auburn to Tacoma-Lacey area and some of the like cities in that area. So starting on page 66 is really where you start looking at the any proposed changes to our fee schedule. Under special use, I'll just kind of go from the beginning to the end, and the ball fields is of course a big section, but just to make sure that you're aware of any of the changes. What we did under special use permit was to add an event and facility staff fee. In the past, it said something like current rate or market rate. And so when people are, there's times where we need to have staff assigned to activities, buildings, et cetera. Sometimes it's this building if it's after hours, or the pavilion or some other spaces. So what we've done is actually put an hourly rate in there because the pay, the fee or the salary, I guess, to a staff person varies. And so what we did is sort of averaged it based on hourly rate and benefits that would go with that individual to make sure that we're covering those costs to protect the investments that we have within the city. And that can have for events or facilities or other kinds of activities. And especially since a lot of our some of the events and activities are really growing at the park. And so just to rely on whoever's on duty that day, sometimes it's a challenge. So we may have to hire staff to come in and be specifically there to support the event. You know, again, it's about risk management and making sure that we're looking at safe operations of our facilities. If you jump on page 67, the next page, you can see we are just updating the market vendors, and this is primarily for the farmers market. And so just so that they, you know, it's basically 10 by 10 space, you get one fee. There's not really a discount for being larger. You're still using the same amount of space. And so it's just to every 10-foot stall, basically, or for the food trucks, you get a larger
Mr.
rate. but it's
Branson has a quick
It's
question.
proportionate. I beg your pardon?
Mr. Branson had a question
I'm
for you.
Excuse me, Ms. Dodds. I just had a question back on page 66,
Mhm.
where there's we're just eliminating all of the fees for renting out the senior center spaces. But in the basis background sentence, it says the city currently does not have a senior facility center to rent and does anticipate one in the near future. Is that I would have thought it would have said does not anticipate one in the near future.
I'm
I'm trying to say, what are we trying to communicate there? I mean, are we actively pursuing renting a new space or something?
Well, we are always actively looking for a location that would work to expand the programs, but that should say does not anticipate that's a typo there. So yes, we aren't anticipating this was primarily for the Lakewood Community Center. It was in line with the types of facilities that we had and the types of rooms that we had, which we're not able to utilize and don't anticipate going back into that space. And
Okay, so
that's
we're
why
not
we
in the
just
very
eliminated
short
those.
term looking to have to re-put this based on a new space.
Correct. If we were
At
to-
least for 2024.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank
We
you.
would bring that back to council if that was, if we found a space that we could expand beyond just our own programming abilities. I covered 67. So jumping on to page 68. This is really just adding to and cleaning up our park shelter use. And we had changed from half days to full days several years ago on the fee schedule. Some of you that are still on the council recall that. Part of the problem with having a half day is that it was sometimes challenging to have two groups in the same location on a day, because if someone didn't leave it in decent shape, then the next group coming might not get the kind of opportunity or service that they expected. Also, we were finding that if you had a morning day and an afternoon day, oftentimes the hours that people were requesting weren't really falling within those two categories. So they are renting it for the full day anyway, just to get the luncheon period or afternoon period that they expected. And so, so we changed that several years ago. We also tried off-season and peak season to see if that would provide more use or more opportunity for folks. We're not finding that that's changing the use patterns at all at the space. So just to make it easier for people to find and utilize the space, and easier for our customer service for staff that are scheduling that. Right now we have the opportunity, and we're grateful that the front counter at the in City Hall will help, do reservations when people call in. And so, but you have several different folks that are doing that. And so we want to make it as easy as possible for them to be able to provide that great service to our citizens when they want to come in and use the facility. So, so you can see we're doing a couple of things. One is for Fort Stolcombe Park has the largest shelter. They also have a small shelter. American Lake and Harry Todd also have large shelters. They're they're regional facilities. There's limited opportunity there. And so the idea is to charge fees for those spaces, so that we, because when someone is taking over that space, they take over the area, and we want to make sure that we're managing that space. So that's the main change for the picnic shelters, is adding them into sort of one category for our larger regional facilities. And then when it comes to the pavilion, again, we've been sort of starting to have more active use of that space. We're programming it, as well as other groups are coming in to use it for. We've had wedding receptions and church programs and business meetings. And so what we're finding is that again, a 4-hour and 7-hour package isn't necessarily providing the kind of service that people are looking for. And when we did comparables to other kinds of similar facilities, most of them did an hourly rate, and it helps people to be able to cover costs as well as better planning for those uses. So that's why we just sort of narrowed it down to $150 an hour. So that'll cover our costs. We have a 4-hour minimum again, so it makes it worthwhile to have a staff person come down and open a facility and close it for what is typically a private rental. So those are the changes for section number 5. We want to jump to page 69. That's really primarily comparables. What we did was add in the, whatever we were proposing here for our fee schedule, we added to the comparables so you could see what we're recommending compares against other facilities that are doing like kinds of activities or providing like kinds of fees for private rentals. On page 70 is where we have started with taking out, you can see the first section is just changing our sport field fees to having soccer field fees now and baseball field fees. We're calling them sports fields because we share soccer and baseball. But we are clarifying so that you can know if you're renting a soccer field, what those fees are. And if you're renting baseball fields, you'll know what those fields are. So the first section, you can just see we took sports fields out and we're going to soccer fields. What we're looking at is the field is per day, and then we add a prep to it. And that way it still kind of goes in line with the previous use rates. But what we do is when we're working with our Lakewood Soccer Club, which is a large use on the weekends for our facilities, they don't pay a per day fee. They pay a team fee, and then they pay for the prep of the fields that they use. They use full-size fields, micro fields, and they have the little bumblebee soccer where they just put the goalposts out. And so we don't really have to prep those fields, but that's how that field works. So the first section at the top is if you want to utilize a soccer field. And then as we go down is where we get into the baseball field. So do you want me to just continue with that and then ask questions? Okay, thank you, Mayor. So what we did was, we're going to have these brand new facilities. We've had 4 baseball fields there for quite some time, and we use them for all kinds of things. But we're going to have 3 baseball fields that are going to have turf infields, highly desired facilities for all kinds of different uses and leagues. And then we're going to have this brand new collegiate facility that we haven't had before. And so when we were looking at developing fee structure, we looked at a couple of different things. Did we want to look at a market rate and have it be comparable to what's happening out in the world with similar kinds of facilities in our partners in the community? We could look at a cost recovery structure or look at a return on investment structure. But because we really don't have a history yet with these facilities, we don't have a history of Pierce College use versus city use. We do know the seasons, but and we don't know, we have lots of folks calling us and lots of folks that have used our facilities for years that are really excited about the new opportunities at these facilities. So we just don't have any data or history. So our goal is to look at really a market rate comparable. You can see we've done comparable information from different kinds of facilities, set rates that we think are fair and that would be manageable, and also cost recovery, but really looking at a comparable rate. And the idea is to gather data for the first, we'll always be collecting data, but really looking at the first year or two to see the use patterns, to make sure that, if Pierce College comes in and says they want to use it every day, all year long, that's not going to work. So how we really can adjust with their schedule, they don't always have home games, they have away games. So that opens it up on the weekends where even during their season, it could have availability. So we're going to be working through that and just looking at maintenance and looking at operations and access and need, so that we can make sure that we're managing the facilities on behalf of the city, that they're safe, but also that we're really making sure that we're taking care of our investment. That's really important to us for all the facilities at Fort Stolken Park.
So remind us briefly on the ball field there with Pierce College. So as I recall, the memorandum, they pay for all the maintenance, at least during the term of their use or throughout the year.
During their period of season, they'll be doing the maintenance for the collegiate field.
And then we would pick up the maintenance, AKA the reason for the fees, right? Thereafter for our use? Okay.
Yeah.
And we don't have to share any of the fees with them because it's for
Nope.
our use and,
All of these.
okay, cost recovery. Got it.
And I do think that it even says in our MOU that if they are going to charge a fee for something, like say they want to do training camps out of the batting cage or something like
Mhm.
that, that there would be a return on the city's investment. I mean, you can't just, it'd be a public,
Right.
private use of public funds, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that there would be some kind of contractual arrangement like we do for lots of programs and activities, like groups that come in and use our facilities for things like
Mhm.
camps and training sessions and things like
So
that.
have you bounced these schedules of charges off of potential user groups just to say, hey, what do you think? Because if I was, and I'm not a baseball guy,
Mhm.
but if I was gonna rent out the facility, I'd think, well, how about an inclusive deal? Because lights and scoreboard, et cetera, on top of the $600 per day or hourly rate is kind of a funky way to do
Yeah,
it.
for the collegiate field, we see it primarily going to be used for tournaments and for
Right.
larger kinds of activities like that. And those folks are used to paying fees of this nature for this type of facility.
Okay,
So we have chatted with some of our different leagues and tournament folks. We have some regulars that have been here, been really excited about the fees. So we've bounced the fees off of them. We won't really know until next year,
right,
you know, how excited they are, but they all charge fees for their programs and services, and they're used to paying field use fees. They have to pay for umpires, they have to pay for schedulers,
it.
they have to pay for all of that stuff. So it's all built into the fee base that they do. The great thing about providing facilities is that we don't have to get into all of that detail of, you know, hiring referees and umpires
exactly,
and
right.
scheduling and all of that. We provide the facility and then make sure that they're safe and ready for folks to use.
Great.
That doesn't mean we may not run programs or activities as we develop these spaces, because of course that's a good use as long as we have the operational capacity to do that.
I don't see parking meters for the tournament play. Just kidding.
Mhm.
Makes it real money. Mr. Branstetter.
Yeah, I did have a question on that section of the chart as relates to tournaments.
Okay.
So when we were looking at the renting of the baseball fields, and we got one field, 300, two fields, 600, three fields, 900. And then it says turf field hourly, Monday through Friday. Does that mean that the rate for one, two, or three fields is a day rate?
Correct. Correct.
Okay, and then hourly is if you just want to do that. I guess with the idea of it's $300 a field. Okay, and we've talked because of economic development discussions and even doing this project and that of trying to incentivize tournaments to come here. Did you consider going 300 for one field, but 550 if you do two and something less that would sort of try to incentivize people to hold events that require more than a single field, which would require people to be here longer and have economic development value to do that. Well, it doesn't necessarily create revenue in the parks to be able to go and do that. I mean, you could even do that differently, but this doesn't necessarily look like there's an incentive to plan an event with multiple fields if you're looking for that. And then my other question was, I am trying to, down under the youth baseball fees,
Mhm.
it says youth baseball teams not associated with any city leagues. That implies that there are city leagues.
We've had city leagues in the past and we may have a city league in the future. So what we're saying is any team that is a youth league, like Lakewood Baseball Club or some other youth baseball group that's out there, a high school that wants to come in and play a game, we have a special rate for those folks because the idea is to have the opportunity there. So, yeah, so
I
that's.
guess it is, how are we defining a city league? Is that something that's run by the Parks and Recreation
By
Department?
the City of Lakewood sponsored league. So if we were running a T-ball program or we were doing a girls softball program or we were
Okay.
running a league, then what we're saying is for these programs that aren't a city sponsored team, it'd be like Lakewood Baseball Club or Silicon High
Okay,
School.
but it's been a while since we've done that.
Yeah, we've brought in contract groups that have done leagues. We've had, well, mostly those have been camps, but yeah, it's been a little while since we've done that.
Okay, and would that include something like we were to expand our summer programs for young people to include something on one of these fields that would fall into this category?
Yes, if the
And
city was
so-
sponsoring it. Mhm.
So,
We typically wouldn't charge ourselves an
and,
hourly
but
rate.
we don't have a fee where an internal fee, for instance, if the
Well, we have a,
Public Works Department wanted to hold have a baseball game that we don't charge them, right?
well, we do have a 45% cost recovery rate. So that would be developed into whatever fee we were going to charge for that program, but we wouldn't necessarily charge ourselves an hourly rate. Maybe we would, but we would typically look at several different factors that would determine whatever the fee was that we were charging. But one of the things that the city also has sort of had a standard of, at least for the last 20 some years, is that duplication, we're not gonna start a soccer league. We have Lakewood Soccer Club here. They do or Lakewood Silicon DuPont. They do a great program. We're probably not gonna start a similar league to what Lakewood Baseball Club does, because that's a community-based group that's already doing it. So it wouldn't make sense for us to duplicate. However, if we were to start a program that they weren't providing and it wasn't provided in the area, then that's typically where we would put our resources.
Okay, so if like the senior center wanted to start an over 55 baseball league, that could be a city league.
That could be a city league, yeah. And there are leagues like that out there. A friend of mine just won a national championship, so, and
Yeah,
he's my age, so
all right.
over 50.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I'm not suggesting a change this go round, but might consider as a matter of economic development
Mhm.
to have a discounted rate. If you rent everything and you rent it for a second day and you're attracting at least one team from beyond 50 miles,
Mm.
there's an incentive for a group to bring in out-of-town people to play here and stay in our hotels.
hmm
So it's, buy one, BOGO deal, buy one, get one.
Well, and if they can justify, I think that's great, because that is lodging tax and it's other ways, that's great. Mhm.
Play ball with the new fee structure.
Thank you.
They do say
Is
that.
that it?
Often, they say it often. All right, well, I think that concludes the items for discussion for this evening. The tentatively scheduled items for the November 20 regular city council meeting are before you, including the approval of the 2024 Human Services Funding Recommendations, the review and approval of the lodging tax funding recommendations, some construction contracts, and fee schedule adoption, as we heard tonight. So we now will move And we'll have a Tensler log location update, which I think we're all looking forward to. That'll be a huge item for discussion next week. Yeah. Well, to branch out in this conversation, Mr. Caulfield, we'll now hear reports from the city manager. You're becoming very popular.
That was a good one.
Yeah, yeah.
Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, council members. Let me start off with, now might be a good time to appoint a subcommittee to take a look at your council rules and procedures on maybe perhaps how
puns.
this body conducts themselves,
No more puns?
you know, in terms of defining what a joke is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good evening. Just a few updates for you. Wanted to let you know, since the council adopted your state, federal, and county legislative priorities, we do have meetings scheduled with your state legislative district on Wednesday, December 13th. We did reach out to County Council Member Janie Hitchens' office and to schedule some time with her as you did last year. And so that's been scheduled for Thursday, December 14th, the following evening. And both of those meetings are at 6 p.m. So I think you're probably looking at 6 to 7 or 6 to 7:30 in terms of you know, the size of your agenda and to get through those. So just wanted to point that out. As you heard from the Clover Park School District's board member, actually board chair last week, the Clover Park School District will be going out for their 4-year M&O replacement levy on February 13th. I just wanted to bring it to the council's attention that in the past you have held a public hearing on whether or not this body wants to either support, not support, or just be neutral under state law. Those are the 3 items that you can take action on somebody else's, on another legislative body's initiative to the voters. And so I just wanted to check with the council if that's something you wanted to do. My recommendation would be that you have a public hearing either on January 2nd or January 16th, followed by council consideration on either January 16th or February 5th. To give enough time before the February 13th election. The reason I bring it to your attention is because you have done it in the past. As a matter of fact, their last 4-year levy, you did consider and adopt a resolution expressing support for their 4-year M&O levy. Likewise, in 2019, you supported the West Pierce Fire and Rescue's proposition, actually 3 of their propositions, and then going back to 18, 16, 15, and 13, between a number of other legislative bodies. So just wanted to point that out, Mayor, and if that's something that the council wants to do, you have some time between now and December to decide on that. So again, I just wanted to bring it to your attention.
Sure, just a point of clarification on that. I don't recall in the past, we always had public hearings scheduled before the council reviewed, discussed, and debated adoption of a resolution in support. Is that a requirement? Or
It is,
that
it
just
is a
something we've done?
requirement, Mayor.
It is, huh?
You have to do a,
That way?
Sometimes it's not even.
Right. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Okay, very good. I don't see great opposition. Are we okay with doing that?
This would be different because in the past, they were done during times of when we didn't accept virtual testimony.
Right.
Okay,
right.
so, you know, a public hearing may draw some more
Mhm.
comments from near and far.
Got it.
so if the council wants to move forward, would you like to hold a public hearing at your first meeting in January, or do you want to wait until your second meeting in January?
Why don't we do it on the second meeting?
Also, the council received a request to declare the month of March 2024 as American Red Cross Month. You've done that in the past. You did that last year. So unless there's any objection, Mayor and Council
That's
will
fine.
put that on there. Also, Association of Washington Cities, their Quality Communities program, they just announced that they are seeking scholarship applications
Mhm.
from the youth of our respective communities. And so that that initiative has been assigned to your youth council. That is something that they do every year. And so they'll bring forward a recommended individual for this body to then move forward to the AWC Quality Communities Organization. As a follow-up to the meeting that Mayor Whalen, that you facilitated with 15 other cities regarding public safety issues specific to Washington State, the McClatchy organization, which is they own the TNT and a number of other newspapers. They reached out to our police chief, Chief Smith, to see if he would be willing to write an op-ed expressing, the city's position on that. So I think there's a great opportunity to take advantage of the press since they reached out to us. So the chief is working with our communications team on that. And so we'll keep you appraised of that before that goes out as well.
Great.
Also, this is a follow-up to a discussion that the council had on the comp plan. It's kind of some not so good news. So earlier this year, the council approved a contract a little over $300,000 with Burke and Associates to help us facilitate this major update for 2024. At the last update, we communicated that, based on, I like to say, peeling back the proverbial onion on both House Bill 1110 and House Bill 1337, we identified some other issues that we need to address, particularly in the area of transportation and parking. That was not anticipated. We just didn't know back when we were putting together the scope of that work. However, now that we do need to address it, which means it needs to be part of our environmental review that we need to undertake. And my ask is that we increase the contract by $110,000. Now, the general fund is tight, and my recommendation furthermore, in terms of where to fund it from, would be to use some projected unallocated ARPA funds that we expect to have available that's been allocated for staff support in support of the ARPA projects. We don't think we're going to be using it all. And so we would like to come back to you before the end of the year for council to consider both of those actions, and maybe just to do it all as one action, quite frankly. But I just wanted to give council a warning order update on that.
We did get a bit of a commerce grant for a portion of that work anyway, didn't we?
That's already included in there, Mayor.
Right.
That's correct.
Right. So not all of this is out of our pocket.
No, this new 110.
The new 100 would be.
Oh, the 305. That's correct. Yeah.
Right.
A good portion of that is actually funded
Correct.
with commerce grants. That's
Right.
correct. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Mayor. Yep.
Mr. Anderson.
Yeah, that's my question that went to that. Is there something that's happened since the commerce grant that have any of the changes in legislation been recent enough that they could be claimed to be unfunded mandates that we could go to the next legislative session on?
So we have asked that question, but right now there is no money available. But perhaps in the short session, the state legislature could appropriate additional monies, and then we will be able to get reimbursement for it. But there's no guarantee at this point in time, council member. So, but
Was it
we
Burke that
unfortunately
underestimated their scope of work?
that's correct. It falls on me. We just didn't know. I'll just be right up front with you. And again, as we have been peeling back both of these bills, we have just uncovered, things that we have to do that we just didn't really understand at the time.
Great.
So, and we're not the only city in this particular predicament as well. So we're actually quite a ways out ahead of a number of cities as it relates to the 2024 comp plan amendment update. So
that's because we outsourced part of it. A lot of cities.
that is correct. That's exactly right, Mayor. Yeah. And we do a balance. We have a balance of both internal resources and external resources. That's right.
Okay.
And then just on your calendar, I know I mentioned those two meetings with your state legislators as well as your county council member. But also just a friendly reminder, on November 29th is the annual Fallen Officer Food and Blood Drive, as well as earlier in the morning will be the flag changing ceremony over at Blue Steel Coffee. On December 6th, from 8 to 10 a.m., we'll have our annual employee recognition event over at the Clover Park Technical College Rotunda. And then I think I had mentioned previously, particularly for new council members, but this is also open to existing council members. AWC is hosting their elected officials essential workshop for 2023. That is on December 9th. And it is from 8:30 a.m. to 2:30. It's both in person and virtual. They have a number of locations around the state, and I think there's one in Gig Harbor, if I recall. So we, actually, the city clerk originally volunteered Lakewood, but then we realized because of our holiday parade and tree lighting ceremony, there's no way it could happen here because we got to do the setup and everything. So unfortunately, we weren't able to do it. And then, of course, that afternoon and into the evening, we have our Christmas parade and our tree lighting event and the joint meeting. And then on December 15th, Caring for Kids is having a holiday fundraising event that is going to be somewhere down in Steilacoom, but I can't remember exactly where. And then we are still scheduled to have a dinner event with our community connector, the 2-2 Stryker Lancer Brigade, on Friday, January 5th at Thornwood Castle. So with that, Mayor,
Great.
That's my report.
Well, thank you very much. Any questions? Mr. Branstetter?
Relating to events, there was a, and I don't know when it went out, but I just received it today, but the postcard about the event about housing and how housing is going to change Lakewood, or who's to blame for the housing changes, or what if and it's a public meeting that we're holding here, I think later this week. So what's the format and the scope of what's going to be presented and allowed in terms of feedback back? And how are we going to capture that? And are we going to get some after the event feedback to the council?
So, Councilmember Branstetter, so working backwards, yes, that feedback will be presented to this body because that's part of the whole process of the 2024 Major Comp Plan Amendment Update. I don't have the specifics at my fingertips in terms of what the exact meeting is, but typically what we do in these meetings is we have an overview and a presentation, and then we provide an opportunity for people to provide feedback and comments on a couple of different ways.
Well, I guess my thought is that I would hope that there would be a balance between people being talked at and being listened to. In terms of what's going on, you're sort of setting the stage, and that we avoid the throwing the state legislature under the bus and saying the council's going to do this, but it's not our fault. I don't necessarily want to send that message out there.
So that's part of the comp plan process, probably going to be coordinated, run by Burke, I assume, with some.
That's correct. And actually our strategic and long range planning manager, Tiffany Spear, is serving point on this.
Yeah, okay, very good. Any other questions on that? I think there was some confusion. I got a call from somebody wondering if that was a follow-up on the ADU topic only that we had. I said it's housing in general, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct, Mayor. It's the whole comp plan amendment process. Yeah, it relates to housing. Yep, that's right.
That's how I read the postcard. Okay, very good. Any other comments, questions for the good of the order for Mr. Caulfield? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we'll turn to council comments. If you have anything to share, Mr. Loricella.
No, nothing tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Branstetter.
Well, I
assume you ate
apologize
good food for the last
being
2 weeks.
That's fine there, and I'm just traveling all day today, and so I'm relatively brain dead, so I don't have anything cogent to say.
Very good. Councilmember Bell.
Good, Mayor.
And you didn't even travel.
I didn't.
Yeah. That's good. Councilmember Anderson.
I spent most of last week going to Orlando, Florida. I spent about 5 hours outside the entire time. for an Association Events Communities meeting, attending as a board member. A rare opportunity to represent the county who was paying for it, the city and SSMCP all at the same time. Had some good meetings in addition to the board meeting and sessions. One with Lieutenant General Omar Jones, who's IMCOM commander, in charge of installations. And one of the topics was the clear zone. That was I think three of us meeting with him. I had a one-on-one with Assistant Secretary of Defense Brendan Owens, both on talking about the clear zone and the potential release of property for private housing. That would be military priority, just in case it comes up the chain. These weren't asks, they're kind of warnings, because we have a follow-up meeting from a prior discussion with Congresswoman Marilyn Strickland's staff and the base on those issues. So they're going to push from the congressional office here up, and we let them know up there. It's kind of went to business school, push-pull marketing, come from both ends. And maybe they can meet in the middle. Another meeting we had, actually our ADC board had met with Patrick O'Brien, head of old CC, used to be OEA, at his request on a number of issues. But the more interesting thing about that was I passed him in the long hall, and this place is so big. My room to the main meeting room and back, if you run to your room and back, I checked my watch, it was 3/4 of a mile, all indoors. They had a shuttle to get from one end to the other. But he buttonholed me in the hall. We were going opposite directions in that long hallway, and he said, hey, that Maria Tobin of yours, she's great. He had attended one of her sessions where she was moderating a panel on spouse issues. I think I wasn't in it. I was interviewing somebody, but he went out of his way. But it also shows the relationship he has with Lakewood and SSMCP, that he knows us, and we're seen as an ally, not somebody just there with their hand out all the time. And so I think that's a positive relationship to keep going. And I'm going to be on vacation after the 20th. So I'll miss the 27th and the 4th. That's it.
You're not here on the 20th either, or you will be?
I will be here on the 20th. I will
Not
miss
the
the
latter
27th. I will miss the 4th, then I'll be back.
Got it. Okay, very good. Deputy Mayor Moss. Okay. Well, just a few things from my end. I met earlier last week with the executive director for the Rainier chapter of the American Red Cross, and it was a follow-up to a meeting I had with them at General Farmer's home. His wife is big with the Red Cross board nationally, and he was just interested in my perspective on the Red Cross and whether or not I knew of anyone who might be interested in serving on the board. So I throw it out there to all of you if you're interested. I did that for 6 years straight, from 1993 to 1999. Great organization. They do good work in the community. Obviously, they're both regional and national, but they have individual scope, and certainly from a military community standpoint, many of our soldiers and their families have been positively impacted by the Red Cross over the years. So if you have a heart to serve or know somebody who might have a heart to serve, they're looking for quality, diverse voices to serve on the board. So certainly let me know and I'll get you in touch with the executive director. Today was a busy day. Started at 3. We had back-to-back board meetings with Pierce Transit, the first of which was their annual sort of budget presentation a bit. They're focused on doing what they can to expand service, to make sure that in lieu of the bus rapid transit, they're going to have an enhanced bus service down that corridor, State Route 7. And the other unique things that they're working on are providing what's called Pierce Transit Runner. It's a runner service where it's kind of an on-demand van in certain service areas, and it's a little bit like Uber with Pierce Transit. And so that will provide folks who are shut in or other folks who have disabilities to get access to good transit. So, you know, unique opportunities. Are also expanding service along certain routes to enhance service hours and accessibility by increasing the service times to 15-minute intervals. So more opportunities for people to get more reliable transportation to where they want to go in certain areas. And that will also include some later evening and Saturday service. So that'll be good for residents of not just Lakewood, but Pierce County. The interesting thing on the budget standpoint is the fare box recovery, you know this as well as anyone, is really a small percentage of the overall revenue.
15% if you're lucky.
Oh, it's like 4.
I mean, if you're lucky, it's.
Yeah, the
That's when
policy
they
goal is
actually charge
12,
people.
and they're like at 4-ish%, which is interesting. But be that as it may, they're a sales tax predominantly based service, and so they're also grappling with the realities of sales tax may not be as robust in the next couple of years as we have enjoyed in the past few years. So despite the fact that they are increasing service hours as best they can, they're mindful that the economy may restrict everything that they'd like to do. The other thing that's restricting their service hours is frankly the lack of qualified drivers. Even though they're trying to hire and are out to hire, they provide good pay and benefits, they're still down a fair complement of drivers that if they were fully staffed, they could do more enhanced service and greater service hours. So anyway, they're a good organization. They're doing good things, I think, and working hard to serve the residents here of the county. So that was the first of several hours today. And then I went over to Clover Park. Councilmember Anderson was there as well and gave the Lakewood report to the board tonight. So they had a lot of folks in the audience and they celebrated a lot of student things, including our youth council and board member drawing a blank, done. Carol Jacobs received a really nice award from the Garrison Commander for her significant years in service to Clover Park School District and of course the military members' children throughout the district. And so it was a really nice award and I thought well deserved for her. She's done a lot of good work. So that's all I have. Any other questions for the good of the order? If not, thank you. We're adjourned.